Hello everybody! Today in this tutorial, which is the second episode of our How to Make an H3VR Mod tutorial, we are going to be going over what GameManager is and how we can use it to modify cool things in our H3VR game and see. So what I've gone ahead is made a sample project, just a new project, and I will put the source of this project in the description after I'm done with it. So what are we going to be doing today? Well, we're going to first make this mod able to add effects to the player when the scene is loaded. Secondly, we're going to make the effects and also the length of the effects configurable using a config file. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, in H3VR, how do you actually access the game manager? Well, first of all, what is the game manager? In every H3VR scene, there's a component. Components in Unity are like objects. There's an object which has this component called game manager on it, or as Anton has put it in the code, GM. This GM component has a bunch of classes and data and functions and properties for you to use to access and modify parts of what's happening in the scene. So to access these, all you have to do is make sure you have using H3VR at the top. To access all these functions and properties, do gm dot. Now your IntelliSense, this is what this is, should pop up with all these options. A lot of them are not well named, and some of them are actually more well named than others. But for this tutorial, we are only going to be focusing on this function, which is going to be, if I can find it, it is gm dot current player body dot activate power. Now, this is a function, so we have to have brackets. You're probably looking, oh, look, there's an error. Well, that's because this function has arguments. First argument is power up type, and you may be able to do this on your IDE. I'm not too sure, but basically you can look at on at least some Visual Studio. If you hover over this, you can click on the type, not the name, but the type of the argument, and so you can see what's the arguments for it. So right here, I'm sorry if that's horrible to explain. I'm right. Power up type. You have to specify what type you're accessing. Dot. Then just for a test, let's give infinite ammo. Now we also need the intensity, so we do power up intensity. Dot. This is infinite ammo, so I'm not sure if it matters, but I'm going to do high because 0 is a first value in an enum, so having it as 0 is probably the standard one. And then power up duration dot. I'm going to do full. Is puke? No, it's not, because this is infinite ammo. Is inverted? Nope. And duration override, we actually do not need to do the duration override because there's already a argument set for it. Now, right now, if we load up this mod into H3VR, we're probably just going to get an error saying, oh, the object reference is not set to an instance of an object. Why is this? Well, you see, right here, public plugin. This is a function which is called only when the object, and so when this is being loaded. And so if we put this code on, the game doesn't know where GM is because it hasn't been created yet. Plus, another problem with this is that this will not really work even if we put it in a awake method. Void awake. Even if we put this in an awake method, it still will not work properly because the GM when this is called awake method, the GM still isn't initialized properly, so this is also going to be wrong. What we need to do is call this function when a scene is loaded. Now, the syntax for this is a bit complex, but I hope to explain it well. So, first thing we have to do is create a new function. I'm going to call it void, private void. Private in C# just means that it can only be accessed in this class. So, private void on scene loaded. Actually, I'm just going to get rid of the on. Yeah. Scene loaded. Then, because it's a function, we have that. Okay. So that's all good. Now we're going to get into the more complicated part. So, first thing you have to do, using Unity engine, because this is a Unity function, dot scene management. Semicolon. And now here's the tricky part. We have to write scene manager dot scene loaded. Okay, so what is this, and why can't I just like call it a function or set that equal to scene loaded? Well, because that's not how events work. An event in C# is basically like a ping set out when a certain event happens. So right here we have the event when the scene is loaded. That means whenever the scene is loaded, it'll send a ping to whatever you put here. And in C# the event syntax is that we need to have plus equal to. Now, before I address the error, let me explain what's actually happening here. We're doing what's called a subscription to an event. So just as how you definitely 100% have subscribed to my channel, and it would show in your feed that a new video from me is out, this is how it works in C# as well. So this function is subscribing to this event. So this function is saying, hey, yeah, every time the scene is loaded, please let me know and I'll execute this code inside. That's cool. But now we have an error. What is the error? Well, you see, scene loaded only works on functions which have the proper arguments, which is the stuff that's in these parameters. So, how do we fix this? Well, you see, it's pretty simple. We just need to give the arguments as asking. So, we do scene, that's the type, scene. We can name it anything, I'm just going to call it scene. And then scene load, no, it's not scene load type, it is load scene mode, mode. Now, what this is going to allow us, this is doing is that when this is called, and when a scene is loaded, it's going to call this method, but it's also going to give the arguments of what scene is going to be loaded, and also what the load scene mode is going to be used. The load scene mode isn't used at all, like from my experience, not used, so we don't not have to worry about that at all. So now we can just move this code from here into here. So now what it's going to do is that when the mod loads, so I'm going to write a logger statement, so logger.log info loading GameManager tutorial, then logger.loginfo subscribed to scene loaded. This just lets me know what's happening and makes it easier to debug. So now I'm going to put in the console after here, logger.loginfo. Oh, whoops. Gave player, and then I'm going to, yeah, no, I won't. Gave player the power of, and this is just for easier to adapt for next time, but we're going to plus power type dot infinite ammo, and it should automatically convert this into a string, so it's a piece of text. It might not work properly. It's been kind of iffy, but it should work perfectly fine. So now that we have that all done, it should work perfectly fine. So we're going to do build solution. So once it has built, go to the folder in which it's built. So to do this, I would recommend just right-clicking this SRC folder, open folder in File Explorer. So I have that here. Go to deli.examplemod, or if you renamed it like you should do, it'd just be whatever you renamed it to. Bin debug net35, and then here's the manifest, which you should have configured properly and added all the proper text. Make sure this assembly is the same as what it's named right here. I've had too many issues where I just completely forgot to do that. So now what you can do, control click both these, 7-zip, or actually send to compressed zip folder, GameManager tutorial.deli. Yes, I do realize that I didn't have to write that all out. Okay, then we're going to cut H3VR deli mods paste. Okay, so now let's test our mod. We're gonna launch H3VR exe. Now I have debug I have debug enabled in my console, so it will show these extra texts. It's not necessary, but it just helps when making things. So ignore these errors. I just don't have my headset plugged in. Oh, and look at this. Loading GameManager tutorial. So it's loading the thing, and it's subscribed to scene loaded. So that means we will get all events of when the scene is loaded. That's pretty cool. And I think H3VR crashed. It does this sometimes when I have I'm clicking around. Give me a second. Okay. So, okay, I hate these errors. Let's find out what went wrong. Classes in the module cannot be loaded. Oh, okay, so so our actual code did actually execute from the look at, oh no. This error, I'm not really sure what's causing it. I've had it been with my, with me often. But let's actually test if it actually works properly. Okay, I have H3VR loaded up here, and we are going to load up into scene. Here we go. So let's do proving grounds. It's easier to debug in, and yes, I do need to change the battery of my controller. I do know. Here we go. So, and look at that. We have confirmation through the particle effects. Oh, come on, my controller, please. That it is in fact working. Look at that. Don't worry about those messages in the console, by the way. I'm pretty sure that's just with my own H3VR setup and stuff. But infinite ammo. Great. Now we know our mod works fine and the power-up is given on the scene load. So now let's add extra functionality to our mod. The functionality I'm going to be adding is for the user to be able to configure what type of power-ups, what intensity, and what duration the power-up shall be. Let's do that right now. We're going to be using in built-in BepInEx function. BepInEx is a mod loader for H3VR, so make sure you do using BepInEx.configuration. We're going to be using the built-in BepInEx configuration. So what we're going to public config entry, and we're going to put these two signs right here. This allows us to define what type the config entry is going to be. The first type we want is a power-up type. So we're going to write power-up type. So it's going to be accepting inputs that are power-up type. And if we're going to name it power. So then, now that we have our property done, we're going to type in, either before or after GameManager.scene loaded, we're going to type in powerup, which is a variable we create up there, is equal to config.bind, and the type is going to be powerup type, and then these functions. Now, if you want any reference to all of this, what you can do, go into Firefox, search up BepInX Wiki, click the second one, plugin development, walk through writing basic plugin, configuration. And here it gives an excellent tutorial on how it all works and what the rules are for all of it. So what I know is that I don't actually need the type specifier, but in my opinion it's actually a lot easier to use. So what I'm going to you know what, it's not necessary, I'm just going to remove it. So config definition. If we look on the wiki, it's the config definition is a section which it's under. So the section is going to be called power up options, just in case we want to add other things other than just power up options. Now these lines can get quite long, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in multiple lines like this. This is perfectly valid C#, and it's mostly it's a stylistic string. You can do it any way you like. So power up options. Now the key. This is going to be what's displayed as, if we look on here, right here. This is what the key is going to be called. So whatever text we put in here is going to be right there. So power up type. Now default value. The default value is going to be power up type dot infinite ammo. And then finally, for the last one, is the description. This is not necessary, however, I highly recommend it for making your mod config accessible for all. So I'm gonna write what power up to give on scene load. Perfect. That is now a perfectly valid config variable. Now to actually access this config variable, what we do is in this function, instead of passing through powerup type.infinite ammo, we can simply just pass through powerup dot value. Dot value gives you the value of the config entry. Alright, so now let's add some more config entries. Thank you. Alright, now we have all of our config entries loaded. You don't have to put any of these in. In fact, you can put a lot more. But I just have them here. So now I'm going to start replacing these. Power up intensity dot high will be replaced by intensity dot value. Power up duration dot full will be replaced by duration dot value. There we go. Finally, we can now build and test our mod. So build solution. Let that go. Then, as always, we're going to find open folder, tell example mod, bin debug net35, these two, send to compress.zip folder, GameManager tutorial.deli, yes, then cut H3VR deli mods, paste. Now, once this finally loads, it will be in this folder, which actually have a bunch of mods which I previously installed. But once the game loads, a new file is going to show up, which will allow us to configure the config file, and the files can be in this folder. Let's test that right now. So let's go into launch H3VR. Let that load a bit. ignore this. Okay, once this is loaded, you have to make sure it's fully loaded first. Here we go. Loading. Loading. There we go. Okay, and that should be loaded fine. So now let's go into Deli configs, and first of all, SteamVR, why are you doing this to me? Deli config, and there we go. net.freer.GameManager tutorial.config. This name is based off what we set in our manifest.json as the GUID, which is the identifier for our mod. So now let's go back into File Explorer and let's open this file up. I have it on my text files set to Visual Studio Code, which is why it does this. But there we go. We have our new config file with a bunch of options. This is an error and will probably cause issues. So I'm actually going to quickly fix that. There we go. That's how you fix. Wait. Camel case. Power up options. So, you know what? Let's change this from infinite ammo to blort. Yeah, blort. Power up intensity high and full. I'm not going to change those. But actually, now that we did change the what it is in the code, we do have to change it here. And we also have to build it. We have to, because we changed it in the code, we also have to create a new build of our mod, so we can actually see the changes working fine in the game. But let's hop into VR. Alright, now we are in H3VR, and let's go to, you know what, yeah, Proving Grounds. Here we go. So, nothing seems to have changed. I think that might be an issue, and of course we have all these errors. That might just because Blorts is a different power-up. So, in the config file, let's change that right up. Instead of being blort, let's change it to, oh, that's, what? Why did it change again? Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that doesn't really matter, and I'll change that, fix that later for when I actually push this. Let's change it from blort to I mean, really the easiest one to test is like quad damage. Or, yeah, I find quad damage just for testing. Oh, and look at that. That tells us that it's, and it's a different color than infinite ammo, which tells us it's actually working fine. And that's pretty cool, not gonna lie. Okay, so let's get out ourselves a, ooh, a pencil. That sounds fun. Let's commit some war crimes. I mean, actually, I can't really test if it... How do we test that it's working? Pistol... Sure. So if it's working fine, that... Oh, wow. I think that killed him. Nope. Is that gonna do it? Oh, well, no, it's done anyway. So let's reload scene and test this again. Okay, so we have the power up. Now let's get out a, sword. Ooh, nice. And find a poor Sosig. There we go. Okay, okay, we know it does work, as in, it works fine, but we can't actually test if it works. So, that's actually just going to be all for today. Oh, there's one last thing. I want to show you how to properly show how to properly commit and push. So that means take all your changes and put them into the cloud using GitHub and the Visual Studio GitHub extension. So let's get out of H3. Okay, so we set up a GitHub repo last time to have our changes. Now we're going to actually use that repository. So just gonna close SteamVR. If everything's saved, and I'm gonna quickly. Oh wait, no, that's the. There we go. So if everything's saved, click this little button which says Git Changes. Now there's gonna be a lot going on here, but basically what it's telling you is that all these files have changed. Okay, I have kept track of those, and I'm gonna change that on the cloud in GitHub. So just before I do, and now I'll do that later. So I'm gonna enter commit message. This is the message which is gonna show in GitHub describing your changes. So I'm gonna write added activating first and also config files. It is recommended that you make these as descriptive as you can, but not too wordy, as it tells people who are trying to learn from your code, or even trying to improve your code, what actually happened here. So what you can do, you can commit all. It says commit locally, but now we need to we've created a commit locally, but now we need to take all those files and put them into cloud. There's a fun little button here that to do that. You press push, it compresses and it pushes. So let's test if this works. Let's go into GitHub. Your repositories. This one, ignore that mod. And look at that. Added activating powers and also config files. We can see the files of what we've added, and sure enough, it's all of our code. Alright, that is awesome. And that's going to be all for today. And I haven't really decided what it's going to be next episode, but I'm sure it's going to be great. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later.